Om Jnanatimirandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachalam Angum Langayate Garim Yadkipa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shanyavari Vasta Chade Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna to everybody. Thank you for coming today, giving me this opportunity to be in your association. Thinking about what I would speak about before coming here today, I decided I was going to continue speaking about a topic I began on Friday, especially since some of those of you who were present in Friday are also present today. And Friday, for those of you who are present, I had given a homework assignment. Bhakta Joe is laughing. If you remember also, Bhakta Joe, we thought another place where you could actually do your homework assignment would be here on Sunday when you're in the Association of Devotees. Even if you didn't get an opportunity to do it between Friday and Sunday. We'll explain. We read an important verse from Lord Chaitanya's Sikshastika prayers. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about whom we talked last week, speaking about his purposes for his descent and for many things that he wanted to accomplish by his teachings, through his example. In fact, most of his teachings were through his example. A lot of his teachings were directly spoken to his direct disciples, to whom he had given a lot of instruction about how to expand upon the essence of his teachings, which he left behind, and the only written instructions he left behind was his Sikshastika prayers. Those were the only written instructions, and he had told Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, and other direct disciples, Gopal Bhatta, Raghunath Das Goswami, especially, to write. Sanatan Goswami had given many instructions about writing, and Rupa Goswami wrote so many books. It was from Raghunath Das Goswami that Lord Chaitanya's pastimes were directly witnessed and revealed to the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, who was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who had given us what we had read from last week, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we were speaking about Lord Chaitanya's purposes, teaching love of God by practicing it and demonstrating it himself. He was able to teach his direct followers, and from them, they also in turn taught others. And in this way, it has been passed down in an unchanged way about what are the characteristics and symptoms of one who actually has Krishna Prema. He was described by Rupa Goswami as the most magnificent incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurachashe Namaha. Because he had come to give what no other incarnation had ever come before him to give, which is he came to give love of God. To, as we hinted about, we spoke about a little bit, externally his reasons were through the distribution of the holy name of the Lord, and also by demonstrating in himself, by manifesting the qualities and characteristics of the topmost lover of God, who is none other than Srimati Radharani, and displaying her symptoms of ecstatic love and displaying her devotion and service by coming in the combined form of Radha and Krishna together in the form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he left behind these Sikshastika pairs, and we, on Friday evening, we discussed the verse, but mostly we discussed a song. It was called Gitavali, song number 3, which was from the 3rd verse of Lord Chaitanya's Sikshastika. Trinadapi suniche natororapi sahishnana amanina mandanena kirtaniya sadhari. That one can chant the holy name of the Lord if he's in a particular state of mind. And then one can chant the holy name of the Lord if he thinks himself to be lower than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, ready to offer all respects to others, never expecting any respect for himself. And in such a state of mind, he can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, which is the actual goal, Kirtaniya Sadhari. We talked about on Friday what Kirtaniya Sadhari, chanting the holy name of the Lord constantly, means for most of those who are chanting the holy names, especially in our spreading of our Krishna consciousness movement. Many of those who are chanting Hare Krishna are those who are in householder life. They have wife, they have children, they have other family members for whom they take responsibility for. And with that comes many obligations. And oftentimes people hear this Kirtaniya Sadhari has to be, the holy name of the Lord has to be chanted continuously, constantly. But one may ask the question, how does one do that if he has so many other obligations he has to perform? I have a client, I have to meet him for lunch, and I have to sit and I have to discuss some details about our contract, and am I supposed to be chanting while I'm sitting there with my client, or when I'm sitting at my desk at work and my boss is checking to see what I'm doing at my desk? Am I supposed to be Kirtaniya Sadhari? Am I supposed to be chanting Hare Krishna? Am I disqualified from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy because I don't always chant the holy name of the Lord? In fact, I struggle to do what sometimes we hear from devotees. They struggle to keep a commitment of chanting a minimum number of 16 rounds daily on their japa mala, on their japa beads. And they begin to wonder, how can I do that and still make progress in spiritual life? And we talked a little bit about that Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that for those who are householders, those who have responsibilities in the maintenance of the family, certainly they have to work. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a verse. There is actually instructions by Narada Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj had asked Narada Muni particularly a question. He asked him that, Yudhishthira, I'm a householder. He said that to Narada, you're a brahmachari. You have a simple way of life. Can you please give me some simple instructions of how I can apply the teachings of the Vedas in such a way so that I may achieve the ultimate perfection of life, even though, and he described himself as, I'm Griha Mudhadi. Griha Mudhadi means I'm ignorant of the goal of life. Mudha, another name for Mudha, means ass, fool. So he presented himself as Griha Mudhadi, I'm ignorant about the actual goal of life because I'm entangled in many other responsibilities of life. Can you please instruct me how I can achieve also the same perfection which is available to those who strictly follow the teachings of the scriptures? And Narada Muni instructed him that every householder, he actually has to earn his means of livelihood. He actually pronounced that as the first duty. He has to earn his means of livelihood in order to maintain family, body, and others. But he has to learn how to offer the fruits of his labor to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said, this must be learned in the association of devotees of the Lord. And he explains also that in the association of devotees, one must hear about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as they are given regularly in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhikshnam. He must regularly hear in a regular way. And gradually, by regularly hearing about Krishna, in the association of those who are more absorbed in Kirtaniya Sadhari, by hearing about Krishna, gradually they can awaken from their attachments to the materialist, attachments in materialistic life. They gradually awaken from their attachments to wealth, home, wife, youth, family. Just as Govinda Das explains in his prayer, Edana Jovana Putra Parijana Edinanyadi Jagire Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala Bajahun Hari Parinitire. He says in his song, Govinda Das says, it's wealth, sons, wife, youth, family. What is there in it? Just as a drop of water appears on a lotus leaf, such is this life. So let me take up the worship of Sri Hari, which is really the only necessity of life. So Narada Muni also explained the same principle to Yudhisthira Maharaj in many respects, told him how to live by regularly hearing, told him how to live in a way to convince others that he's performing his duties, that he's attached to performing his duties externally. He should engage them in such a way that others will be convinced that he's performing his duties, but internally he should always remain convinced that he should be careful to not allow himself to get too entangled in the materialistic way of life. And then he also says, Yavabriyeta jatadam tabatsvatsvam hidehina marikam yobimanyita yasastenam dandam aharti. He says that for a householder, one should aspire for as much wealth necessary to maintain body and soul together. One should not aspire for more than that, knowing well to whom they belong. And one who aspires for more than that, Narada says, is considered to be a thief, and he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. So Narada Muni was straightforward with Yudhisthira Maharaj, but he gave him the means for gradual disassociation. And as I said, first instruction he gave was that he should perform his duty. He should have a means of maintenance for himself and his family, and he should learn how to offer the fruits of his labor for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. And this is done by association of devotees. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also explains that for the householder, Kirtaniya Sadhari means not that they always chant Hare Krishna under all circumstances and in the execution of their household duties. They have many other topics they have to speak about. Sometimes they have to speak about contracts. Sometimes they have to speak about buildings. Sometimes they have to speak about rent. Sometimes they have to think about food. Sometimes they have to think about medical necessities. There are many other things that have to be there, that have to be performed. And they have to be performed as a matter of duty. He says, but yet all of these things are done. Why? Because there's a particular goal. There's a particular goal that one lives in maintaining his home, his wealth, his health, his wife, his family. The goal is to utilize the human body for its ultimate purpose and not to waste it. Sometimes I tell the little story that it helps illustrate this point very nicely. That sometimes when people hear it, they can relate to it. Because most people have mobile phones these days, and when we start talking about iPhones, everybody wants to know what's the next one coming out? 16, right? I think it's up to 15. Some of you might be wondering, when is 16 already out? No, that's not the purpose to discuss iPhones. But the purpose is that most people who have them, they want to, especially they're very, very intricate instruments these days, and you can accomplish a lot of things. Like I see one right here, is filming my lecture. Now, who would ever thought that somebody would take his phone? I mean, I remember a time when we were doing Rath Yatras in Boston in the 1980s, and I had to rent this big wireless, it was a phone. It was about this big with that big antenna, and so that I could call the temple. And when we were running low on prasadam at the Boston Common, I could call them and tell them when to bring more prasadam out to all the guests. And that was a rental phone. It was about this big, So now everybody's got the phone that they can use for doing everything except making phone calls, which is sometimes low on the priority list. In other words, you have something that you want to use to your full potential. So one time I was saying to a group of people, I think I was in Taiwan at the time. Can't remember when it was, but I think it was when the next version was an iPhone 10. And I said to them, if I told all of you tonight that I have an iPhone 10 and I'm going to give it to one of you for free, what would you be thinking? And of course, nobody at that time even knew what the iPhone 10 would do. So certainly they would think, well, what does it do? What does the iPhone 10 do that the iPhone 9 doesn't do? So if I give them the iPhone 10, then the first thing they want to do is they want to go get the manual, they want to go online, and then they want to start reading up on what bells and whistles are in this iPhone 10 that I can't use for my iPhone 9. Very, very interested to know what are the new features. How can I use it to its full potential? So I was using this example to try to tell them, well, if I tell you that you were given the gift of a human form of life out of 8,400,000 species, and it's a very rare and valuable gift that somebody has given you by arrangement of material nature, that the living entity transmigrates through all these different species of life and finally comes to a human form of life. And what to speak of when he comes to a human form of life, he comes into the contact of an association with a devotee, and he learns that there is a way to use the human form of life to its full potential. Well, just like if you had an iPhone 10 and when you only had an iPhone 9 and you wanted to know what the full potential of the iPhone 10 was, an intelligent person would want to know what's the full potential of the human form of life. And Bhagavatam says, Kamasya Ninjaya Patiya Labojiniti Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasyanata Yasjeha Karmabi. That life's desires shouldn't be lived simply to gratify the senses. It shouldn't be the purpose of life. One should desire to live because the human form of life enables one to inquire into what is the absolute truth. This should be the goal of all of one's work. It's the goal. Kirtaniya Siddhahari for household, it means all of one's work, there's a goal. It's not sense gratification. And that's why Narada Muni told Yudhishthira Maharaj, Yavad Briyeta Jataram Tavat Svatsam Hidehinam. One should aspire for as much wealth necessary to live according to whatever needs there is required in the human form of life. How to live simply. But one who aspires for more than is required, he's considered to be a thief. And he deserves to be punished by the laws of nature. Now, of course, it's a strong statement that Narada Muni gave to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And if somebody takes this verse and analyzes it in relationship or with respect to his own life, he may think, well, everything I have, I need. So, in fact, there are a lot of other things I need that I can't even get yet because I have so many debts. But then at some point, we have to come to the point of realization, how much do I need and how much do I want? Because this is a difference. Sometimes we get to the point, especially because the illusory energy offers so many nicely illustrated articles, pictures on signboards, on your mobile phone, on television, on internet, all these things that they make you think you can't live without. And then you begin to think, well, I won't be happy unless I have it, therefore I need it. And an intelligent person should make a distinction between what he needs and what he wants. So these are the instructions which our acharyas give. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as our instructions, Narada Muni, he gives. And many of our other acharyas who were personally taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have also given instruction. They taught by their example. And 6 Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, he lived under a different tree every night. Raghunath Das Goswami, he wrote his swan song, Vilap Kusumanjali, which was his greatest piece of literature that he wrote, which was showing, illustrating what is Prayojana Tattva, what is the highest goal of life, what is the ultimate goal is to be absorbed and aspiring to become an eternal associate of Srimati Radharani, and become an eternal associate in the spiritual world, and to give my life, give my everything, my words, my mind, everything, and thoughts absorbed in rendering service to the Supreme Lord and His eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. And how did he do it? He simply lived very, very simply. Krishnadas Kaviraj gave us Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was writing in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He said, now I'm very old, I'm losing my eyesight. Very difficult for me to even see. I'm debilitated. Yet, look what he did. Why? Because he taught by his example how to use whatever life is left in this human form of life, to use it in service to the Lord, to glorify the Lord. And it's the ultimate goal. It may not be something that we can immediately apply. We have to follow Narada's instructions. The way we apply it is by gradually becoming detached, at least by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of God in the association of devotees. This is the real purpose. In fact, in Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, first he tells Arjuna, he says, actually the real goal, everything that you should do is just always think of me, constantly. If you always think of me, then certainly you will come to me. Then in the next verse he tells Arjuna, Atachitang samadhatam na shaknosi mayi stiram abhyasa yogena tato mami chaptam dhananjaya. This is my dear Arjuna, if you can't think about it all the time, because this is what the essence of Bhagavad Gita's teaching is manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. To always think of me, Krishna says. Always worship me, always offer your homages unto me. Surely you will come to me. And then Krishna says, Savadamam purichaja mamikam sharanam praja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me, and I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So Krishna says all the components of surrender that he's telling Arjuna to do are in this verse, to always think of him. But previously in the 12th chapter, Krishna said to Arjuna, always think of me. But then he gave a concession. And he gives concessions. He says, Atachitam samatatam. He says, if you can't always think of me, then follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga. In this way, cultivate a desire to attain to me. And what does he mean by saying cultivate the regulative principles of bhakti yoga? He's not telling Arjuna, come take your vows before me, chant 16 rounds every day and follow the 4 regulative principles, no meat, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. This is not the regulative principles of bhakti yoga that Krishna is telling Arjuna to follow. What he's telling him in this instruction is to regulate your life in such a way that you think of me. In other words, rise early in the morning, make some sacrifice, get up early in the morning than you would normally get up so that you can do something to think of Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. This is the goal. This is why I'm going to work, so that I can wake up early in the morning in my house, in my little room where I have a little altar for a deity. I can wake up in the morning and I can sit before the deity and I can chant Hare Krishna. I have the house, I have the temple room, I have my wife, I have my children, I'm taking care of them, I'm getting them off to school. But all of that, just simply to do that for the sake of accomplishing it, that's not a goal in life. It's not a goal. And that's just it. Life's desires should not be directed simply to fulfill these particular temporary necessities of life. In fact, Prabhupada sometimes, in the same 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he described the necessities of life, he calls the unnecessary necessities. 7th canto purport. Someone may say, what kind of a statement is that? What is it, an unnecessary necessity? But Prabhupada is implying that we're so much fixated on those things that we feel are so necessary. I think Prabhupada uses an unnecessary necessity. Was it lipstick? I think that's what he used. It's unnecessary. He said, he's just using that as an example. But he was using, I can't remember what other examples he gave in the commentary. But essentially he was saying that so many things that one thinks that they must have, but actually life can be lived without them. And the real necessity of life, as we described before, is, we quoted that song by Govinda Das, Edana Jovana Putra Parijanite Kiachi Parititere Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala Bhajahun Hari Parinitire. That the real necessity of life is to worship Sri Hari. Sometimes we think of necessities of life. We have a tendency to say, well, what are the necessities of life? People, well, generally, and it's common sense to answer in that particular way. They'll say food, or they may say air, or water. It's a necessity of life. But that's not what Govinda Das is speaking about. He's speaking about the ultimate necessity of life. Necessity of life that we just described, food, water, air, these are necessities for maintaining life in the body. But life has its own necessity. Right? Yes, there are necessities for maintaining life in the body. But anybody who knows the basic instructions, basic teachings of Lord Krishna and Bhagavad Gita knows Dehi knows minyata dehi komaram jovanam jarata antrapapsya dirapatra tatrastamuyati. That the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. The soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. And one who is dhira, he's not bewildered by such a change, because he knows that just as a person takes off old clothes and puts on new clothes, the living entity gives up the old useless material body and he takes on a new material body. So necessity of life is not what maintains the body, because that's going to be given up. It's a temporary necessity of life. The ultimate necessity of life is, I have to do something in this life before it's gone. I have to use this iPhone 10, use this human form of life to a greater potential than just to get the things done to maintain body. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that for Kirtaniya Sadahari, for a householder means to work. He says if he doesn't work, he doesn't maintain his body, then his body will expire untimely, and he will have missed out the opportunity of fulfilling his actual rare opportunity of what he can use the human form of life actually for. So rather than to allow his body to expire untimely, he'll use everything. He'll use his manasa deha geha yoki chokchumor. So he knows that it's my mind, my home, my wealth, my family. Everything belongs to you, Krishna. It all belongs to you. I'm simply taking care of them for you. Or as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I'm simply your dog standing outside guarding your house. Describes himself in that way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We were going to talk about Friday night, but and what we talked about on Friday night with respect to chanting the holy name of the Lord. And because as I said on Friday night, and I reminded myself about Friday night when I mentioned Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the homework assignment that I had given to the devotees. It was in respect to this third verse of Lord Chaitanya has given in the Sikshastika prayers of Trinadapi Sunichina, Torodapi Suhishtana, that if one wants to chant the holy name of the Lord, if one wants to be able to continue to do it, it's one thing to begin, but Kirtaniya Siddhahari means once one really wants the opportunity, really wants to continue to chant Hare Krishna, because one who remembers Krishanta Kali Chamami Vasmaran Mofakalevaram, whoever remembers Krishna at the time of giving up his body, Krishna says, he once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. There's no greater perfection of life. There's no greater utilization of life than at the Ante Narayana Smriti, that at the time of giving up this temporary body, which Krishna very clearly explains, is one has to give up at the time of death, is to remember Krishna. He says that whatever one remembers at the time of death, that state he will attain without fail. He says this is the air carries different aromas from one place to the next. The living entity carries his different conceptions of life from one body to the next body. So if we're giving up this human form of life and we're not chanting Krishna's names, we're not hearing Krishna's names, we're not remembering Krishna, then we may lose out that wonderful opportunity which somehow has been given to us, how to accomplish the actual purpose of human form of life. So we have to practice by chanting Hare Krishna. The goal is always to be chanting Hare Krishna, but at least we have to practice. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya in his Sikshastika prayers says that we have to also practice another type of behavior if we want to chant the holy name of the Lord. And that is Chinadapi Sunichena. And on Friday night we read one song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur about this particular verse. It was from Gitavali. And I'm going to read it, and I was actually going to talk about it, but maybe I'll do it some other time, because I don't have time to talk about it, because to talk about it will take a lot longer than 3 minutes. which is generally the time which this class ends. But I think it's very helpful if everyone hears it, and I'll make a few relevant comments. Because this was a homework assignment, Bhakti Joe. It was who else was there? Glenn, Dr. Glenn was also there. Neela Gopal was there, that's right. And Amisa Sundari were there also, yes. So a few of you were present during this homework assignment. So, and I told everybody, I posted it on the website, on my website, and I told everybody if they wanted to remember what their homework assignment, they can go there and download it. It was available. I posted it within an hour after the class. It was there. Actually, one thing very nice related to this, it's a little anecdote that Muktavanya told me. My godbrother, Muktavanya, after the class, he was present on Friday night, and told me this little anecdote that his Satsvarup Das Goswami had given out on a piece of paper at his Vyasa Puja last year, and it was just three different pieces of paper. First paper said a non-believer had a question for Srila Prabhupada. He asked Srila Prabhupada, "Can you please tell me what is your Siddha Deha?" Now, Siddha Deha is what I was speaking about a little bit when I was talking about Raghunath Das Goswami, who is actually, he's Rati Manjari. He's an eternal associate of Srimati Radharani and Krishna Lila, and he's a gopi. But he, in his sadhaka form, he is Raghunath Das Goswami. So, and in his eternal form, he is Rati Manjari. So Siddha Deha is one's eternal identity after he gives up this world and he goes back to the spiritual world and lives eternally as an associate of the Lord. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, he was a non-believer, and he asked Srila Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, can you please tell me, what is your Siddha Deha? And Prabhupada responded to that question, and the next page shows a picture of Srila Prabhupada. He says, the Siddha Deha is the third verse of Sikshastika prayers. My Siddha Deha is the third verse of Sikshastika prayers. Trinadapi sunichina, turorapi sahishana, amani namanadina, kirtaniya sadhari. And that was what Satsvarup Maharaj was handing out I was told by Muktavanya, was handing out devotees this little anecdote, that this is Prabhupada, how Prabhupada presented himself as his Siddha Deha. I'm going to read one other little story in this connection. Then I'm going to read Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because it's so wonderful. It's wonderful. It's about Prabhupada, because Prabhupada's the best person to learn everything. If you want an example, just go to Prabhupada. You'll find all the examples of all the things that we're going to talk about in this song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There are so many things that we'll hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that we can find an example of Srila Prabhupada. So this is an interview that one devotee was speaking to a godbrother of Srila Prabhupada. His name was Obial Kapoor, who was initiated the year before Srila Prabhupada. His name was Adi Keshava Das. And he was later interviewed by one devotee, Vyasaki Prabhu, who was compiling some anecdotes, stories from Prabhupada's godbrothers into his book Radha Damodar Vilas. I think that's where he was putting it. And he approached Obial Kapoor and asked him, could you please tell me something that you remember of Prabhupada? And Obial Kapoor said, I saw Prabhupada, I saw him. This is a little bit, I'm not reading the whole thing. He said, I saw him playing on Mridanga at the time of Kirtan. I felt attracted towards him. And he felt attracted towards me because I was the only non-Bengali person there. We became acquainted. And acquaintance turned into friendship. Friendship into brotherhood. He also got initiated a year later. I took him as my elder brother and sought his advice on certain matters. He used to manufacture medicines. So once he manufactured a tonic and gave a vial to me. I said, "This is all right, I'll take this tonic, but I wish you'd give me the tonic you take, the tonic of Krishna Prema." So that was his request. Prabhupada said, "No, I don't have Krishna Prema, but I do know the formula." So Prabhupada, he knew how to mix everything perfectly. I knew the formula. I said, so Adhikeshwar says, let me know if it's not a secret. No, it's not a secret. The formula is, Chinada pisa nichina, torora pisa hishnana, amanina manadena, kirtaniya siddhahari. Why don't you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. Such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Prabhupada said, and I shall preach it the whole world over. And Obial Kapoor said in his interview, he said, at that time, I couldn't understand what it meant. I thought he was just making a casual pronouncement without any plan in his mind. Because this is way back in, long before Prabhupada ever started the Krishna consciousness movement. So, I'll read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Gitavali 3. If you desire to engage in Sri Krishna Kirtan, then with great care, attain the required qualification. He's saying in this particular song, it's a prayer, and it's a song that he wrote in relationship to Trinadapi Sunichina. He said, I don't have it. He's praying at the end, he says, I pray that you make me into the person who's qualified to have these qualities. I don't have these qualities. This is how he was thinking also. He's actually thinking that these are the qualities of somebody who has love for Krishna. They're very advanced qualities. But if we study, we'll see in many places, wherever this humility is referred to, we'll see it spoken by Lord Chaitanya himself in his instructions. He always says that one has to practice this verse. Even though it's a perfectional stage, to be humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Even though it's a perfectional stage of those who are situated in Krishna Prema, it's a perfectional stage that Lord Chaitanya himself even demonstrated when he even told in his symptoms of ecstasy, I have no love for Krishna. If I had love for Krishna, I wouldn't be alive, because it's not possible to have love for Krishna and feel separation. It's not possible to live through the feelings of separation. One would simply die. And I'm simply living like a sense gratifier, enjoying this body. So how is it that I'm simply pretending to have love of God? I'm pretending to have these qualities. Lord Chaitanya was actually saying this. Was in the chapter we were reading from last week in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is actually describing these things also, that these symptoms are fully manifest in those who have love. But we may not have love. And even those who have love, they never feel they have love. They always think themselves to be, their lives are fully manifest with dainya, humility. One of the symptoms of dainya is given by Srila Sanatana Goswami. It's actually given by by Narada Muni, who gives it to Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And he tells him that wise men define dainya as the state in which one always thinks oneself exceptionally incapable and low, even when endowed with all excellences. An intelligent person should carefully cultivate speech, behavior, and thinking that fix him in utter humility. And anything that stands in the way of it, he should avoid. So it's not just for persons who are situated on a platform of love of God, it's also for intelligent people. An intelligent person, he should carefully cultivate speech, behavior, and thinking that fixes him in this humility. And anything that stands in the way of it, he should avoid. In other words, he doesn't look for praise. Lord Chaitanya says he doesn't look for respect, but he's always ready to give respect to others. But he's not expecting respect for himself. He's not wanting worship. He's not wanting praise. He's doing it not because he wants to be recognized. He's doing it because he wants to please the Lord. And practice it. It's practice. It's a practice for learning how to chant the holy name of the Lord. And in its full maturity, Narada Muni says, at its most exalted, dainya comes forth when prema, pure love of God, reaches full maturity, as it did in the women of Gokula when they were separated from Krishna. In other words, as they were manifest in Srimati Radharani. The point that I simply wish to make is practicing Trinadabhisa Nichina is something we can all do, even though we may find ourselves to be a little bit falling short of these qualities being described here by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Gita-vali 3, which I'll read and I'll end with. And if you want to follow the same homework assignment that the others had, they were given it from last Friday to next Friday, you can go to naranjanaswami.net and they'll be there. You can download them. And you can learn a little bit about what things should be practiced from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who speaks about these things in Gita-vali. Now I'll read it. Took me a little while, forgive me. If you desire to engage in Sri Krishna Kirtan, then with great care attain the required qualification. You should give up all false pride and always consider yourself to be worthless, destitute, lower and more humble than a blade of grass. Can I give one more example of Prabhupada? Just one more example. We'll finish them. But this is a really nice. Prabhupada, because if you think about worthless, that's a tough one to swallow. I mean, for those who are situated in the platform of prema, they actually think worthless. But to think oneself worthless is, I mean, we all need to we all need a little sense of self-esteem, and we need to be worthy, but spiritually worthy. Spiritually worthy, not worthless. And Prabhupada describes himself as worthless in this little quote that I'm going to give here. This is something that he wrote to a disciple. He says, I'm so much moved from your kind sentiments that you have expressed from my humble activities. Actually, I am not worthy of any one of the words spoken by you, but all of them are due to my spiritual master, who was so kind to me. In fact, I'm a worthless person because my spiritual master ordered me to take up this work in 1922, but I did not carry his order until 1958, when I was obliged to carry out his order by his arrangement only. This means although I was not very enthusiastic to carry out his order, he forced me circumstantially to accept it. So this is his special mercy upon me. And I always think about this with gratitude to this exalted personality coming directly from Vaikuntha world. And we had the great fortune to meet him. I think that is the only credit on our part, that we happened to meet him by some agyata sukriti or unknown auspicious activities. This is what Prabhupada responds, how he responds to glorification. Actually, I'm worthless. He thinks this way. Actually, I didn't do anything. It's just some agyata sukriti. Somehow I came undeservingly. Some person descended from Vaikuntha. A Vaikuntha man came. And somehow I got the opportunity to hear something from him. And it took me so long before I actually executed what he asked me to do. Therefore, describes himself as worthless. Anyways, you should give up all false pride and always consider yourself to be worthless, destitute, lower, and more humble than a blade of grass. You should practice forgiveness, like that of a tree. Lord Chaitanya says a tree, if someone comes and breaks a branch of a tree, he'll never complain. And if a tree is drying up, the tree will never ask anyone for water. But Lord Chaitanya, in his instructions, when he was instructing others how to practice this verse, Janata Pisunijena, you should practice forgiveness like that of a tree and giving up violence toward other living beings. You should protect and maintain them. In the course of passing your life, you should never give anxiety to others, but rather do good to them while forgetting about your own happiness. Even if one is a great soul, possessing all good qualities, one should abandon all desires for fame and honor and make one's heart humble. Knowing that Lord Krishna resides within all living creatures, one should, with great respect, consistently show honor to all beings. By possessing these four qualities, humility, mercifulness, respect toward others, and the renunciation of desires for prestige, one becomes virtuous. In such a state, you may sing the glories of the Supreme Lord. Weeping, Bhaktivinoda submits his prayer at the lotus feet of the Lord. O Lord, when will you give me the qualification for possessing attributes such as these? I'll end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Please forgive me for going over.
I have to.
That's right.